This week we're celebrating America's 250th birthday. And I've been thinking a lot about what that actually means for 2026. 250 years ago, a group of people decided that freedom is actually worth fighting for. They were outnumbered by the British. They were outgunned by a complete empire. And you know what? They won anyways. So what does 250 mean? It means freedom isn't self-sustaining. Someone always has to be willing to defend it. And strength isn't just about having the biggest, most lethal army. It's about having the will to actually use it. Because deterrence requires not just capability, but it requires will. That's always been the American way. Peace through strength. Now, the greatest military in history of the world doesn't happen on its own. It takes investment, focus, and leadership that never loses sight of the fundamental truth. The best way to prevent war is to make absolutely certain that your adversaries know you have the capability and the will to defeat them, and defeat them decisively. 4 years under President Biden, we clearly didn't do that. Instead of asking questions like, are we lethal? Are we ready? Can we win? Biden's administration asked, are we meeting our DEI quotas? They handed promotions out based on checked boxes. Readiness conversations were crowded out by woke mandates, and they created a military that the world's bad actors began to see as distracted and soft. That's dangerous. But you know what? We're fixing it. The Working Families Tax Cuts rebuilt the foundation of military that is focused on one thing, and that is warfighter readiness. Not quotas, not ideologies, readiness and lethality. And that's the way it should be. Now, I want to talk about a contrast that we're seeing because it's stark and it actually matters. Republicans believe in a strong America. We believe our military should be feared by our enemies and trusted by our allies. We believe in fair and just enforcement of the law. And then you look at the other side. We've watched the radical left call to defund the police, turning their backs on the men and women who run towards danger so the rest of us don't have to. We've heard Democrat voices say that America deserves what happened on September 11th. And that somehow we brought on ourselves. Let me remind everybody that 2,977 Americans went to work that morning and never came home. And someone decided that that was justice. We've watched members of their coalition say Israel, our closest ally in the Middle East, doesn't have the right to exist. A democracy, an ally, gone, just like that, if it never existed. And recently, the Democratic Party is actually lifting up as a leader. She uses the American flag as a napkin. As a napkin. Think about that for 1 minute. That flag has been draped over coffins of 18-year-olds who never got to come home. Fathers who kissed their kids goodbye one last time without knowing it. Husbands whose wives still sleep on one side of the bed. It has been folded slowly, deliberately, with shaking hands, and placed in the arms of mothers and fathers of widows, of children too young to understand why their mom or dad isn't coming back. They will hold it for the rest of their lives because it's all they have left. It flies over every veteran cemetery every veteran cemetery in this country. It's the last things families will ever receive. And this woman used it as a napkin. That's the comparison. That's the contrast. That's who the Democratic Party is lifting up. But it's more than that. Around the world, in countries living under oppression, under tyranny, under regimes that crush the human spirit, that flag actually means something. It's the symbol of freedom, of liberty, of the ideal that people deserve to determine their own destiny. There are people on this earth who would risk everything just to stand beneath it. And someone in the Democratic Party that they want to send to Washington admitted to wiping her greasy hands with the American flag. That's who the Democratic Party is. Using the American flag to wipe their greasy little hands with. That's who they're lifting up. That's the direction of the Democratic Party. And you know what? The American people deserve to know it, and the Democrats, you better own it, because silence is agreement. But here's what I know. Most people, left, right, center, they don't want that. They want safe communities. They want a military that can protect them, and they want a country to be proud of. That shouldn't be a Republican idea. That should be an American idea. As we head into this 250th birthday, our job is simple. Leave this country stronger than we found it. A military that is ready, a republic that is free, just like generations before us did. They did our part. Now it's time for us to do ours. And with that, I want to turn it over to my friend and colleague from Texas, Ms. Beth Van Dyne. You got it.
I want to thank you. Can lift that up a little bit. Am I like apparently I'm the tallest person on it? There we go. I want to thank Speaker Johnson and Majority Leader Scalise and Chairwoman McClain for having me here today. As July 4th approaches, so does the 1-year anniversary of our Working Families Tax Cut Bill that's being signed into that was signed into law by President Trump after passing both the House and the Senate, saving the American people from the largest tax increase in our nation's history and delivering real relief for hard-working Americans. And now, thanks to the Working Families Tax Cuts, we are in a new era of making sure hardworking Americans keep more of what they earn and are paid more for what they do to support their families. Passing the Working Families Tax Cuts was a multi-year endeavor of talking to folks from across the country. Hearing directly from the American people guided everything that we did to ensure that more dollars stayed in their pockets, and so that we could help as they worked to recover from government-created and historically high inflation, from brutal Biden-era job-killing regulations, and the sacrifices to make ends meet from month to month just to keep their businesses afloat. Empowering American families was central to everything that we would do. Getting these tax cuts done correctly to help working Americans was personal to me. I know what it's like to work an 8-hour job, a minimum wage position, and then pick up additional shifts at another job just so that I could scrape for every dollar to pay rent at the end of the month. And keeping all the money that I earned from tips would have made the difference between being able to go to the grocery store to buy what I wanted to eat, or once again having to pack up leftovers, sent back to the restaurant kitchen at the end of the night. And legitimately, I did that. Just like we have working Americans across the country doing that day in and day out. And as a mom of 2, with 1 child facing serious health battles, the expanded child tax credit and largest standard deduction would have let me pay for the care that my daughter needed, without having to skip treatments or having to beg insurance bureaucrats who really didn't care if she got better or not. Democrats mock these tax dollars that saved for the American people. They sneer at what real relief means to real people. But I lived it. And I felt the soul-crushing anxiety of barely being able to make ends meet. And that's why these reforms mattered so deeply to me, and why they matter to every struggling family in America. And this isn't just about stabilizing households. It was about forging a stronger, brighter American future. And the working families' tax cuts are restoring hope. They are rewarding work, and they are unleashing the extraordinary potential of the American spirit. And that is the promise that we made, the fight that we won, and the future that we are proudly delivering for every working family in this great nation. Thank you, and God bless. And with that, look forward to hearing from our wonderful leader from the great state of Louisiana, Steve Scalise.
Well, thank you. And I want to applaud Congresswoman Van Dyne for the hard work she did on the Ways and Means Committee and 11 different committees to bring the Working Families Tax Cut to life, to law. A year ago, July 4th, all of us were on the White House lawn standing with President Trump to celebrate the signing of what's going to turn out to be one of the most historic bills we've seen in our lifetime, a bill that is ushering in more opportunity for families, more wage growth for families. You're talking about, and Congresswoman Van Dyne mentioned it, what's happening right now. About 30 million Americans have taken advantage of no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. That's more money in their pockets today that they didn't have a year ago because of that legislation. And of course, keep in mind, every single Democrat voted against that bill. They voted against it because they want Washington to have more of your money. They want to control and have more power here, and to do what with it? To use it for fraud. We've seen it in states like Minnesota, leering centers that we exposed because of the provisions, the anti-fraud provisions of that bill that we passed a year ago. None of that would have been exposed if we didn't have that legislation in place that every Democrat voted against. So again, eliminating fraud in states like Minnesota so that working families, a single mom working 3 jobs can have more money in her pocket. That's what the Working Families Tax Cut represented. We're going to bring a bill later this week to reflect on and celebrate the wins for American families that bill reflected. Earlier in the week, we're going to be dealing with a number of other things, too. We've got the National Defense Authorization Act, a really important bill to set the priorities for our nation's defense. So, of course, there are always a lot of amendments on that bill, but ultimately its final passage to make sure that we continue to reprioritize our men and women in uniform, give them the tools that they need to be successful, and continue rebuilding our nation's defense, something that President Trump made a hallmark of this presidency. We're also bringing the bill to address the state and foreign operations budget. Mario Diaz-Balart's appropriations bill, it's another item on the agenda this week. Last night, we passed a major bill to protect children online, the KIDS Act. Huge bipartisan victory. I know they're not common around this place, but it happened last night where Chairman Guthrie and the Energy and Commerce Committee worked for months to put together legislation to protect children online. You can see what that bill did to help protect children from pornography and other things that we've been trying to accomplish and we're able to do. That bill's now going to go over to the Senate. In addition to making sure our nation's defense is prioritized, we're also adding the Save America Act to the NDAA. So again, really, really important week. We're having other meetings on things like Reconciliation 3.0. But when you think about all of this, and we reflect on what's coming up this weekend, celebrating our nation's 250th birthday. It's going to be a great day. You see this great fair on the mall with every state that wants to participate, being able to show off what's great about their states and what's great about our country. I come from the great state of Louisiana, where we celebrate the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 that doubled the size of our nation, and what it also allowed us to do in terms of gaining access to the Mississippi River so we could become a nation that exported our goods to the world, getting access to the Port of New Orleans. That was the reason for the acquisition when Thomas Jefferson sent his detachment over to France to try to buy the Port of New Orleans, and they came back with the entire Louisiana Territory. By the way, for the bargain price of $15 million, we doubled the size of the country. It's a pretty darn good real estate deal. And then you think of all of the other things that our state and every state contributes to the greatness of this country. At a time when the Democrats are in a fight to go to the Bolshevik Revolution and see who can tear down America more, most Americans are celebrating what's great about this country. We are celebrating what's great about this country. Let the Democrat Party try to have a fight over seeing which candidate they can come up with that hates this country the most. It's disgusting to watch on their side, but that's their problem that they're going to have to contend with. And they have not. They can't confront the evils of some of the people that they're nominating. And you look on the other side, this is a country that's actually experiencing a golden age again. I mean, gas prices are down 50 cents from where they were just a few weeks ago and continuing to go down. Affordability is back again. And Democrats are upset about that because they wanted it as a talking point for November. But it shows you once again why this is going to be a contrast election in November. There's maybe in multiple generations never been a sharper contrast in terms of what the voters are going to be facing on this ballot. Common sense conservatives against far left communist, Marxist, socialists in November. Which direction of the country do the American people want to go? Do they want to keep experiencing this golden age that President Trump and Republicans are ushering in, or do they want to go back to the Bolshevik Revolution, which has failed every country it's tried? This is not the country we're going to try socialism. We will reject it. The voters will reject it in November. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is a great day, great week to be an American, to celebrate the greatest nation in the history of the world, and it's not even close. And you all hear me remind us of that all the time. The most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent nation that has ever been on planet Earth. America is back right now, and there are so many reasons to be excited and to celebrate with your family and friends. Celebrate freedom. Celebrate the great blessings we have to be in this country, the greatest on the planet. We've got challenges, of course. We're working through those every day, but there is no reason not to celebrate. There is no reason to be depressed in any way. We recognize 250 years is still an experiment. We're still a grand experiment in self-governance. In 1776, the founders came together and they boldly proclaimed a self-evident truth. We call it the nation's creed. It's like a statement of faith. And they said right in the second paragraph of the Declaration, which we celebrate this weekend, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And what is a self-evident truth? It's something that's obvious. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And I always pause there and say, note that it doesn't say born equal. It says created equal by God. And that it is God, our Creator, who gives us our inalienable rights, that among those are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That statement was so revolutionary when it was made, when Jefferson wrote it on behalf of a small committee of founders, including Franklin and Adams, and they came up with that precise language. They were very careful in how they articulated that. They wanted to make this bold proclamation of something that was obviously true. And we are the stewards of that great foundational principle and truth. It means that everybody's made equally, created equally. It means that we all have, we strive for equality of opportunity. It means that every single person has inestimable dignity and value because our Creator made us in His image. The men that wrote that understood it from Scripture. That is what made America exceptional. That's what set us on the path to be the great nation that we are, one nation under God. Now, all of you know, because you've been in the chamber a lot, because you cover us, if we were there, we walked over there right now, one of the first things you notice if we come in the door where members come in is that inscription of the national motto right above the Speaker's rostrum. And if you look in the visitor's guide, it says the People's Guide, Visitor's Guide to the People's House. It's a beautiful publication they published some years back. We still hand it out, full color. On page 21, it talks about why the motto is above the Speaker's head and when it was placed there. And it says there it was placed in 1962 by Congress as a rebuke to the Soviets' philosophy during the Cold War. What was the Soviets' philosophy? Marxism and its deviations, communism. Marxism, socialism, communism begin with the premise that there is no God. And Congress saw fit in the early 60s to make sure that we put that right there above the head of the Speaker, because every member of Congress has to face that podium every single day, and they wanted future generations of Americans, and certainly those elected to represent the people, to remember what distinguishes America, that we are defined by our national creed, the foundational principle that set us on course to be so great. Now, here's what we face right now, surreal as it is. On the anniversary of the country, we have an open contest right now between the Marxists and communists and the Americans. Now, we've been saying for months that this is setting up, this midterm will be a contrast election. We've been saying a contrast between common sense and crazy. And now you can add another line there. It's common sense versus communism, because that's what's happening in the Democrat Party. The insurgent left is taking it over. I don't need to recount all the developments, even over the last week, for the people in this room, because you cover it minute by minute. But that is the contest that is shaping up. And so we're very sober-minded about this. A country that undermines its own foundations and founding principles does not survive. And the founders were very articulate also in their personal letters and their private correspondence and the things they gave down, the advice they gave that echoes down through the generations to you and me as stewards of this grand experiment. They didn't know how long it was going to last. I can tell you one thing, though, the father of our country, George Washington, in his famous farewell address, which we read on the floor each year in the Senate and now in the House on the anniversary of his birthday, he gave all the advice that echoes down through the generations to all of us, his countrymen, how to keep the republic, an experiment that had never been done before in history. And he said, you know, watch out for national debt. We're working on that right now, okay? Watch out for too many foreign alliances. That's become a problem sometimes. It says, make sure that you don't get into factionalism, regionally or by political parties. We didn't follow all that either. But what he said was, but you know what? Almost as a summary statement, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, he wrote, religion and morality are indispensable supports. Again, echoing this common theme, that we recognize that our rights do not come from a king or a government, they come from God himself, and it is to him that we owe our ultimate responsibility. That's what we're fighting for. And the insurgent left that hates America, hates our founding principles, they hate the idea of borders and prisons. They even want to remove the president and the Supreme Court in the latest Democrat Socialists of America little platform statement that you should be covering. Very dangerous stuff. Yeah, they wipe their hands on the American flag. Yes, many of them have ties to terrorist organizations. You can't make this stuff up. We're no longer in a battle just between Republicans and Democrats arguing over marginal tax rates or the size of regulation. This election and this year and the arguments and the things that are happening in Congress right now is a contrast between people who love the country and its founding principles and those who have open disdain and hatred for them. They want to tear America down. They want to tear down Western civilization, and it's not going to happen on our watch. So today, we're working. We're going to pass a rule today. We'll set up a National Defense Authorization Act. We will invest properly, appropriately, responsibly in America's national defense again. Our policies reflect that. We give a pay raise to our troops that's overdue, another 5 to 7%. We will advance 65 of President Trump's priorities and executive orders in the legislation. We will do the things that are necessary to make sure we maintain our status as the great superpower, the remaining superpower on the planet. It is absolutely essential that we do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, Reagan used to remind us, you hear me say all the time, freedom is not passed along in the bloodstream. It's got to be fought for, protected, taught, passed along to the next generation, or else they won't have the same liberty and opportunity and security that we have known. And America is the leader of the world. We are the beacon of freedom. The Capitol building, one of the most recognized symbols on all the planet, because that Capitol dome represents liberty. It represents freedom. It represents the great nation. We will not sacrifice that now. We will double down. We'll celebrate on July 4th, on our nation's grand birthday, the semi-quincentennial, and we will advance those principles further. We will win the midterms. The Republicans will stay in charge, and we will continue to advance great policy like Beth recounted, the Working Families Tax Cut, that we celebrate the one-year anniversary on July 4th, and so many other things. Over 700 pieces of legislation that have passed through the House, over 100 executive orders codified already, and there is more to come. We have much more to do. America's back. You should celebrate all the great things it is to be an American. I'll take a few questions.
Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Thank you. What was the obligation of Tom Kane Jr. to his constituents about his health during this prolonged absence? Should he have said something to them?
I understand Tom has given a speech on the floor this hour. I don't know exactly what he said, but I hope that he was fully transparent, as I encouraged him, many times over the last few months to be.
Should he have been more upfront in that interregnum?
What did he say? Did he tell what his?
He hasn't said anything.
Okay, all right. Well, then
But I'm saying he had 4 months to do that.
He did, and I encourage him to be transparent, because what you will find when he does the speech, whenever that happens today, is that there's no conspiracy involved in this at all. There's nothing scandalous at all. He has a health condition, as he said. If it were me, I would have been more specific about that, and I encouraged him to be. He will today, but it will be understandable to you. It's not an uncommon kind of condition and ailment that he's been fighting, and I think people resonate with it. I think he'll get a lot of empathy, because it's something that's very, very common. So I encourage him to come back. I'll say this about my colleague: he is a genuinely good man. He comes from a long line of a valiant public service. His family is very well known for their service, and he's a person of integrity. And I think he'll address this with the integrity and the character that he's always shown us as a great team player, a patriot, a faithful public servant. He's missed some votes, but he's still been working as he was able, as he explained. His staff's been working overtime, I know, because they're in constant contact with mine. And I think his constituents have been served throughout this process. We're all human. People get ailments. People have to fight cancer and terminal diseases and all sorts of other maladies. But they're still the duly elected representatives. They do their best in those trying times, and I think the American people understand that. I think Tom gets reelected easily this fall, and he'll be back, and he'll be back in full health, and he'll continue to do what he's been doing his whole career.
Mr. Speaker. How you have a bunch of issues, and as you alluded to on this rule, save, and there's this Delphi pension situation that Mike Turner said you were for, so the president was for, and then it was made out of what was not made in order in the Rules Committee. What's your plan on that?
Well, on the Delphi thing, we ran into a point of order problem, a rule problem, because the way it was presented, it was, not to get too deep in the weeds, but it was appropriating on an authorizing measure, and that's always been subject to a point of order and a problem. Mike Turner is earnestly trying to get this problem solved for this it's a significant number of employees of the former Delphi corporation that had their pensions rated under the Barack Obama administration, and we're anxiously trying to get a solution to that. So I certainly understand and appreciate his zeal. There were hundreds of amendments filed to the NDAA. Many of them were not made in order because they were either not germane to the underlying bill, or they had a point of order they were subject to, or it was in the jurisdiction of another committee. And we've been very insistent since we returned to the majority back in 2023 that anything that goes on the NDAA, I think logically, obviously, must be directly related to defense spending and within the jurisdiction of House Armed Services Committee. And that's a rule that we've maintained consistently across the board. So we're working on that, a number of issues. Of course, people get grumpy sometimes when their amendments are not made in order on a big bill like that. But we addressed it in conference this morning. We reminded everybody of the rule. We have to be intellectually consistent about this, and we're going to work through those other issues. Now, with regard to the Save America Act, listen, I don't know how many times I can say this. As you all know, we've passed the Save America Act in one of its various forms 3 times in the House already. We will pass it again this week when the NDAA passes. The Save America Act, as passed in February unanimously by all Republicans, and that's components of the proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID when you show up to vote, that will be merged onto the NDAA and transmitted to the Senate as one bill. That's the most efficient, effective way to do it. There's no need to add an amendment to the NDAA. Let's just have the full bill that's still sitting there and has been transmitted to the Senate. Let's send it again, but put it as part of something that we hope and believe will be a bipartisan vote in both chambers, and that Democrats in the Senate will understand, goodness, as much as I may have disagreements with the current administration, it's probably important to pay the troops and fund national defense. I certainly hope that they understand that, and maybe the SAVE Act makes it through in that vehicle. We're going to continue to do everything we can. I would pass the Save America Act every day in the House if I thought it would do any good. But we're going to be stacking them up over there. This will be the 4th iteration, and we're going to hope that the Senate will do the right thing.
Mr. Speaker,
I got to get a lady. Yes, second row.
Hi. Do you have any opinion on the Supreme Court rulings that have been decided this morning?
This morning, I've been busy since 6. I haven't seen the ones this morning.
Knocked down coordination limits.
Yeah, they ruled on transgender athletes that states can pretty much, they can, let me read. They can protect against discrimination solely on the basis of biological sex.
Yeah, that sounds like the right result. That's common sense, and I think what we expected. I can reference the opinions that came out yesterday. Had a quick time to review those at about 1 a.m. Last night, and I can tell you that the one that we were really very disappointed in was the Watson case, where they said, this is how long do you count mail-in ballots? California is destroying every American's faith in our election system by dragging this thing out and counting ballots for weeks on end after an election. It's absurd. And I think the court missed this one. It was 5-4, and I think they went the wrong way. And they said, well, the states get to decide how to do that. Now, there is some question as whether we can tighten that statute and make another run at that, so we're looking at that in detail. I'm going to make sure Congress does everything possible to ensure free and fair elections, everything within our jurisdiction in every way possible. I can tell you every Republican in the Senate and the House is committed to that, and it is shocking and sad to me that Democrats refuse to vote for the most basic election integrity measures, even to say that you have to be a citizen to vote in America. There are Democrats who will not vote for that, even though it's already part of federal law. It's not enforced in the blue states. They will not vote for the enforcement of that. They will not vote on federal elections for you to have an ID when you show up to vote. That's a 90-10 public opinion issue, at least 80 in almost every survey. Everybody understands the common sense of that. Democrats won't help us. We've got to do it on our own.
Mr. Speaker,
second row.
So Birthright Citizenship, which as I speak has not come down yet, but it helped hundreds of thousands of formerly enslaved people in Louisiana. Now, do you as a constitutional lawyer and representative to the descendants of some of those people who were enslaved agree with the president that it should be done away with?
What was I missed the first part of the question.
It helped hundreds of thousands.
No, what was the...
It has not come down yet, but do you agree with the president that it should be done away with?
What hasn't come down?
Birthright Citizenship. The last case has not come down.
Oh, Birthright. Sorry, Birthright Citizenship. Yeah, okay, look, yes, as a constitutional lawyer, I got lots of opinions on this. Okay, understand what the framers did, and when we added this to our constitutional order, understood what the intent was. I think anybody who looks at this... Oh, dear.
That citizen is children born in the United States to parents unlawfully or temporarily present are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are citizens at birth under the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause. So, what's your reaction to that, Mr. Speaker?
Well,
This is real time.
I need to read the opinion, okay? But obviously you could say that's a textualist, originalist view. However, I do think that this has been grossly abused in recent years, okay? And that is the case that was being made by the plaintiffs in the case, and we're very sympathetic to that because it is a serious problem. We have it's become a birthing tourism, they call it, a trend where people will just come and you just come onto the soil and have your child, and then they're able to avail themselves of the welfare state and everything else. It's been abused. It's one of those things that was intended to serve a noble and important purpose and has been thwarted and overused and abused. And so I'm sure that we'll continue to look at that. I mean, I'm sure the conclusion from this opinion is going to be that you got to amend the Constitution to fix that. As we all know, it's a big challenge to amend the Constitution. It's only happened 27 times in our whole nation's history, and the reason is because you got to have 2/3 of both chambers of Congress and 3/4 of the states to ratify. It's usually at least a many years long process and very complicated. We'll see. I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussion about that. I will say I'm very disappointed in that outcome. I think it subjects the country to serious challenges going forward, and we'll have to deal with it as a Congress. Last one.
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, front row, sorry.
On the housing bill, the president said yesterday that the housing bill is unimportant in his view compared to the Save America Act. I know you want to see the Save America Act passed, but do you share that view that the president said yesterday? He seemed a little bit dismissive of the bill.
No, look,
and in your conversations with him, are you confident that it will become law, that he will not veto it? And then are Republicans missing out on that opportunity for him to sign a piece of legislation that you all described affordability as a big issue in the midterm election.
Yeah, it is. The president has a lot going on, and I think it's safe to say he's not read through every line of that piece of legislation. It's a lot to it, and a lot of great things, and he and I have spoken about it quite a bit. He understands all the dynamics here, what he was saying, and legislation. But what he was saying is, in comparison to ensuring election integrity, which is now represented by the Save America Act, nothing is as important, because you cannot maintain a constitutional republic unless you have free and fair elections. A government of, by, and for the people is ultimately and foundationally dependent upon that. That's what the president is saying. We all agree with that, and by the way, so do the American people. Now, that's not to say that there are not also incredibly important issues, and the cost of living and affordability is among them. It's top of mind. I've spent 6 hours in the Oval Office just in the last few days. I think 4 hours on Thursday, over 2 hours yesterday. We talked about all this in great length. The president certainly understands the importance of affordable housing. As he's noted yesterday, he knows as much about housing as anybody, because that, in many respects, was part of his portfolio and career. And he understands that we've got to reduce the age of the average first-time home buyer from in their 40s to their early 30s and get back to some sensible market conditions. Now, he also points out that interest rates are a major factor in that, as we all know. Anytime there's a housing boom, there's lower interest rates, and it spurs on that activity. But there are also input costs and the cost of construction and the barriers to entry. We address so much of that in this housing bill that we fought like warrior poets in the House to make sure it was good Republican policy in the end, and it cuts regulations, it reduces costs, it helps spur on construction, and it gives more affordability and availability to more people. The president is 100% in favor of all that. It will become law. I've encouraged him that he should put he has a big, bold signature, as you all know, and I said, sir, you should get the fattest black marker you have and sign your name really big on that, because the results of it, I'm telling you, are going to be very, very good for the American people, and it will fulfill your promises and your desires, sir, to make sure that more people can grasp the American dream. And so I hope he does sign it. If he doesn't, it's still law. We'll still celebrate it. But he's trying to make a point, and I think he's making it very effectively. And the fact that you all ask me every 3 steps down the hallway illustrates that he has achieved the desired objective, and that is to make Save America the number one thing, because if we don't get that right, everybody's concerned about what happens next. So I think that's a way to summarize it. Thanks for the lifetime commentary on a Supreme Court case I haven't read yet. I'll go do my best and dig into that. Thank you all for the time. Happy July 4th.